partner with The Talk Mid-South on VMAG TV. How many hats can one person wear? Husband, father, pastor, community leader, and activist. That sounds a lot to me like Dr. A.R. Scales, affectionately known as Ray. He has so graciously invited us into his home to chat for a few moments. Welcome, Dr. Scales, to the show.
Thank you.
So, I want to talk about your early years, where you were born and raised, and things like that.
Born and raised in Toronto, Arkansas. That's between here and Memphis, Tennessee. Chopped and picked cotton all of my life. Was educated in the intermediate public schools in Toronto. Went to high school in Marktree, Arkansas, and graduated from Carver High. Right after high school, I went to which is then called AM&N College, which is now the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff.
And what were your courses of study?
I am an English major.
Okay.
I majored in English, and enjoyed my 4.5 years there at Arkansas State University.
What else have you done?
Oh my God. Good question. After college, of course, during the summer, I would always come back home and I worked as singer in different departments as singer. And that was to help me get money to go back to school with. After college, I went to the military. I got drafted in the military of the Vietnam War. And I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where I took my basic.
Okay.
From there to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, I took my advanced individual training, which is known as AIT. From there, I was permanently stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, where I spent the duration of my time there. After the military, after the military, I came back to Jonesboro. As a matter of fact, we moved to Jonesboro in 1968. I had 1 year of college left.
Okay.
And so after the military, I moved back to Jonesboro. And I was blessed enough to get employed here in Jonesboro at KAIT, where I worked for some 22 years.
That is amazing. And we're going to get into that a little more.
Okay.
But first, somewhere along the way, you also became a husband and a father.
I did. But recently, I grew up together in the same church.
Okay.
Both of our mothers are ushers in different churches, not the same church, but the same church district.
Okay.
Our mothers were ushers, and once a month, all the district ushers of the 22 churches would come together, and they were having what is known as the Usher Confederation. And so that's how I met Clarice and her family, because my mother was an usher, her mother was an usher, and we all participated in this event. Okay. I also went to school with Clarice in Marktree for 1 year. That's when they brought all the black students from maybe 3 or 4 different counties, and they put all of us at George Washington Carver High there in Marktree. So, and Clarice's brother and I graduated high school the same year in 1965. So that's why I always knew Clarice, even though I'm 3 years older than she is. I always knew her and knew her family.
Okay.
And so that's how we ended up being hooked up, and we got married, I think, in 1972. I got out of the military in 71. So we got hooked up, and we already liked and respected each other. She's a great lady.
Yes, she is.
So here we are all of these years later, 4 kids later, and all of these years later, and we're still together, and we've had a great life together.
We might have to use you for another piece on longevity and marriage. So.
Okay, yeah, all right. That would be great.
And so, since you have 4 children, what are some differences you can see raising your children versus how you were raised?
Well, I'll tell you what we did. Of course, we lived in a different day and time. We adjusted to the way that things are now, but we still gave them the basic, the love of God, the respect of others and respect of themselves. We taught them that. And the country values that we were taught, we gave them those values.
That is very essential.
Yes. and we adjusted to the way that the world is now. But one thing about it, we had them biblically based.
That's great.
And so they are producing great families, and they're great young adults.
Yeah. So you mentioned country values. Can you expound a little more on that?
One thing is to work and to take care of yourself.
Okay.
To be independent. To help those who in need.
Okay.
And to just live a peaceful life. Live and do unto others the way you want them to treat you. That's the thing of this. Okay. Our primary thing is to work and support yourself. Do not rely upon the system. The system owe you nothing, but we owe stuff to the system.
I wish more Americans will follow some of those same rules and principles and adapt them to their own lives. We've covered quite a bit so far, and we still have a long ways to go. Now I want to introduce to people the minister.
I accepted my call on the second Tuesday in April 1978.
It's amazing you remember the date.
I remember that very well. I will never forget that day. It's a story behind that. I was, for some reason, I stayed up very late that night.
Okay.
I always had Kanisha with me. She was 2 years old. I'd be reading the scripture and praying and meditating. And so when I lay down, that's when I got my call.
Wow.
So, that's right. And so everything, it just light everywhere. And so I'm going like, okay, if this is really you, God, come back to me and let me know. I want to be sure. Old-fashioned, you know what I mean? And that's where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And so I stayed up all night that night. I prayed all night, but God did not come back to me that night. So I got up the next day. I went to work, and we were still processing film. So I was in the dark room, and you had this big magazine. I had loaded the film into the magazine. So the whole room, I'm at work now.
Wow.
The whole room just lit up. And so I went to cover the film up so that the film would not be exposed.
Okay.
And then I realized that it is not light in this room. It's the light it's inside of me, and it was God. So I come out of I closed the magazine up. I come out of the dark room, and I got on the phone. I called my wife. I said, I just been called to the ministry. And the first thing she said was, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm sure." I was very sure, and I accepted my call. But what I said, like you hear stories about this all the time, where it says that I'm not going to tell anybody. I didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? I was close to God. I love God. I still didn't want to be a minister. You know. And so, when I got home, God always give you a witness.
Okay.
Being country, or just the way we was raised, there were 5 girls, 5 boys.
Okay.
We never went into each other's bedrooms. Never. The family would always together. Because it was a lot of us, we all had big living spaces. You know, even in the country house, we had big living spaces. But being and my youngest brother, walked into my bedroom because I'm sitting on the bed. I just got in from work. And so, first it surprised me to see him in my bedroom because we never do that.
Okay.
And so he looked at me and said, "You've been called to preach." And so it kind of shocked me what it did. And so I looked up at him, I said, "Yeah, I have." That's how you know. He said, "God told me."
That's amazing.
And so I said, "Don't tell nobody." So he said, don't tell nobody. So we visited for a minute, then he left and came home. So then I said, I'll come over to my mother's house. And so I was sitting on the porch. No, I went into the house. There was a porch. And there was this lady, a friend of my mother, sitting on the porch. I didn't even see her. And so I came in. So she was watching me as I went in. And so I went in and I told my mother what had happened. Well, anyway, when I came back out, she spoke to me. So I spoke back. And she said the same thing.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, well, the word is out. That was April. And from April to September, I'm doing little things. So I always work with choirs anyway.
Yes.
And so I started pastoring the very same year on the second Sunday in September of 1978, the very same year. And it was a shock to me. So then, of course, I knew I needed more school and getting involved and doing things like that, you know.
I'm blessed that you accepted your calling because my family is in turn blessed from your ministry.
I hope so.
Alrighty, and so since you accepted the calling, I know you did some ministering somewhere else.
We did. We ministered, we pastored the First Baptist Church in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas. I will always be indebted to them and grateful to them for giving me an opportunity. And we was there almost for a little over 9 years. We pastored there. And I grew, I learned how to pastor, and it gave me a jump start. You know what I mean? And the people, they were very cooperative and kind of pick you up and kind of push you forward. You know, very helpful.
Okay.
And acceptance of our family. And we were a young family. What was that? 33 years old.
Okay.
And my wife was like 28, and our daughter was just 2 years old. But they just took our family in. You know, the older ones did. They prayed for us and they worked with us. You know, and so we grew there. We grew tremendously there.
Okay.
And we're thankful for that and thankful to them.
Okay, so you expounded a little bit on your ministry where you got your start at Walnut Ridge. Now can you tell us about New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church?
I can. I stayed at First Baptist Walnut Ridge 2 years longer than I was supposed to. The Lord told me to leave. I didn't want to. I really liked it there. Finally being obedient to the Lord, I did leave.
Okay.
And so what the Lord has shown me was some other churches where He wanted me to do my ministry. I was a little hard-headed. I learned that experience never to be hard-headed again. But anyway, so I petitioned the Lord, and I apologized for being hard-headed. And so then the Lord planted the seed for us to start this church here, which is what we did. And so we started fundraisers, getting announcements, and doing the necessary, buying land. We had to start from scratch. We had nothing. We had nothing. So we started from scratch, and the Lord blessed it. And a little less than 2 years, we had erected the building. And we didn't get a chance to select the name. The church I grew up in was Mount Zion, Toronto. And So we decided we'd name this New Mount Zion because the church was still in existence at that time. It's it no longer is. But we decided because most of us who started the church, as a matter of fact, then in 89, we really started to work in 87, had grown from that church, from Mount Zion Toronto. So that's how we selected the name. And so here we are, some 23 years later.
Oh, wow.
And the church has really grown. You see what it is now, you know. And so God has really blessed that ministry. And I am 4 years away from retiring. I can't hardly wait.
Always say that.
but I'm thankful for what He's done. And the membership is absolutely divine.
It is. I am very blessed to be a member of the church. Going on 15 plus
years. Okay, plus 16 years.
Now raising a son in the church. And I'm just very blessed and very thankful that you obey God's word. Okay. And as if that wasn't enough, being a devoted husband, a nurturing father, a celebrated minister. Okay, you did talk about your career at KIT, but I want people to know a little bit more.
I was the very first black employed at KIT.
Okay.
And this is really weird. After the military, I really hadn't decided what I was going to do, stay here. I thought I was going to go to Atlanta. That's why I really wanted to go to Atlanta, Georgia. And my wife and I, we had decided that in a few years that we would pack up and move to Atlanta. So I got the job. I think on maybe the 29th of September, maybe August it was, at KIT, right after the military. And so I really knew nothing about TV. And so I just kind of built around because I'm a fast learner in a way, you know what I mean? And so, but what I could do, I could write, and that's what I did at first. I did some creative writing, but I know then because that I did not want to do that because I want to be where the action was. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so I was watching those news guys go in and out. I'm going like, I think I could do that.
Okay.
And so then, what they was thinking about, was making me be like a sports person, you know, do a sports reporter. And so, but the news guy wanted me. So this Saturday, I went out with a guy named Steve Corns, who, as a matter of fact, who's a news director still in New York, and who's written a book and got me in the book that he's written. And so I went out one Saturday with him because they didn't, even though the black community here was very small then, you know, everything was kind of, it was community, you know, so forth, everything. But so we went out, and so we went to the black parts of the city, the little black communities, the black neighborhoods and stuff like that. So we did some shooting. It was terrible, but it was fun, you know. And so we got in, so he just started making fun of the video. He said, "You're supposed to stay still." I was all over the place, so I was very excited, very young and very excited. So it kind of grew from there. Okay. And so then, when I got there, so one day the guy came out and says, "Do you want to go with us to do this?" So I said, "I don't know how." I said, "We'll teach you." All right. So they did, and so it kind of. So then the boss came out and said, "We're going to send you to Kodak Film School to become a photographer." And so he said, "Get the paper and decide on where you want to go." Well, one in New York, and one in it was one in Atlanta, and one in Philadelphia. You know, I said like, yeah, my older brother lived in Atlanta. That's right. So I selected Atlanta, which is where I went. Okay. And even though I had done a little bit then, and so that just built it. You know what I mean? And they just built that photography thing, and they trained that eye. And I got a glimpse of what was really going on. And so from that, I did it. But this is the one thing about it. The guys that were Dick Clay, I always give them credit, Jack Hill, they helped train me and mold me into a great photographer. And so, you know, I sit there today all with my career behind me, Emmys, every award that you can win for photography, I have those awards. You know what I mean? And so I thank God for that. And I remember this one time we was out, and so, because I was only black, so and I was smart. Okay. And they wanted to promote me and do stuff like this. So I was talking to this one to Jack, and I got 3 offers at other TV stations. One in Dallas, one in Little Rock, and one in Atlanta. The one in Atlanta started you out at $60,000 a year. And you talking about the early, as a photographer in the early 70s. That was a lot of money, $60,000 a year. And so then they said there's another position on where you start at $70,000 a year, but you got to chase ambulance. I didn't want to be chasing no ambulance, right? And so anyway, so I was talking to Jack here. He says, the money is good. And he said, it's just more of everything. But you do the same thing here. Okay. And he said, but if you work, and he said, you are one of the best photographers we have here. And become the best, you get all the big shoots. Okay. That's what I did. I made up my mind then, and my wife and I talked, and we decided we just live here. And it was safe for our children. You know what I mean? Right. We were thinking about that. And so that's what I did. The Democratic National Convention, that was once again in Atlanta. I covered that. Every president from the early 70s up to the time I retired, I got a chance to meet. you know, and Kings, and because we went to all the big shoots.
Okay.
All right, and then too, competing with the bigger markets and with those documentaries that I won all those, we won all those awards with, and money came with those awards, by the way. Well, that just enhanced it. Whereas I had a great career here at KIT, living in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
And who knows what might have happened if you went to Atlanta? You might not have gotten those same experiences.
That's exactly right. Well, I could not have gotten them there. It'd been some more experience, but it wouldn't have been the one that I got here.
Yes.
You know. And then too, breaking into this market, and it was unique because here, you had blacks at first despite everything, but they wouldn't hire blacks in a certain position. I can remember when we would go into these offices, there were no blacks. You know, I remember that we couldn't go into the country club because blacks weren't allowed. I remember you couldn't go to City Water and Light thing unless you went with a white guy. Yeah, these are the early '70s. So you was in uncharted water.
Okay.
And as the Jonesboro Sun says, off the beaten path. You know what I mean? And you're going into these places. And the thing about me, I already had college behind me, had military behind me, so it wasn't no big deal to me. You know, I didn't care what color a person was. The way we was raised, my mom and dad in Toronto, we were just people, black, white, whatever. You know, they would speak, and the white folk would say, "Well, you're Elijah's son." You know, they knew my parents. You know what I'm talking about? So as far as having hatred for any other race or any color people, that was never instilled in us. And even though when people would be mean to me, and sometimes like up in the hills or here in certain parts of Arkansas, you go there and people would say stupid stuff. I would just look at them and start laughing, and I would say, "This guy needs some help."
That's right.
You know, so I wasn't going to fall into that trap. And then too, my beliefs in God and my faith in God had me grounded, where I knew those things existed, but I wasn't gonna let them want to pull me off into the gutter. You know, we was raised different than that. You know.
And I think that faith
That is an understanding.
The next chapter of accomplishments, the Martin Luther King Day celebration.
That is big. that is so big. You know what I mean? Okay, let's see here. We started out to make it a success.
Okay.
I never entered into any projects without prayer. Right.
Okay.
So I prayed about it. We were challenged by the then recreation director, I think he was, for the city of Jonesboro, to get one going. And he made the statement, he came to our church and he spoke. You may have been there. And he said he could not believe that a city the size of Jonesboro did not have a Dr. Martin Luther King Day parade. So he challenged us to do that. And you know something? I was not even bothered. I was not going to do it. I thought I would say I wasn't. And I wasn't. And so this guy from Dr. Richmond from Memphis, the black guy, he called me and asked me, was I working on it? I said, no. He said, well, do you plan to? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, let's see if we can do it. Well, I knew that I could do it.
Okay.
And the reason I knew that I could do it, I didn't know how big a plan, but I knew the kind of church that we had.
Okay.
And the people that I knew downtown, and I know this is a great city. And it's the city that I feel with hatred. The people in the leadership position. Okay. You know. Yeah. So I am sitting there in the office one day, I get a call from the mayor's office. Well, the secretary called and said, we have these papers from the Martin Luther King Commission, the National Commission for the Martin Luther King Day. And she said, I'm going to send it to you through the mail. I'm going, okay. So it comes through the mail, and I look at it and I read it, all the different stuff is going. And so then I go on the computer, and I get all this information, almost more than I could digest.
I can imagine.
And so different people started bringing stuff to my office about Dr. Martin Luther King Day, you know. And so that I knew that God had warranted this and blessed this day. So then you remember, you were there, I announced it in church. I said, we're going to try. Yeah. Well, my niece, who's the principal of one of the schools in Memphis, called and said, I can bring my band. And so I said, how much you going to charge? She said, we'll just come.
Okay.
And so they came, and so then I started working it. And so then the mayor of the city of Dover got a little nervous about it, you know. And so he summons me, and we were talking about it. So then I got out in the computer, I started making a few calls. I got to give props to Reverend Alfonso Vincent and Reverend Elder Glenn Condon. Because I called them, and we all talked, and it took a little money, because we had to rent a building at first, which I did not like. Because the city should have done it, which they do now. You know, the city should have financed it, but they didn't know either. And so we did that. And so we had a lot of help. We had help from retired school teachers, not retired, but school teachers. We had our young school teachers and a lot of educators at our church. And so what they were doing, I don't think they knew, but they was educating me. And I was feeding me the knowledge, and I just kept on doing it, and it finally worked. And The first one, we had 500 people at.
Okay.
And you remember the little march, you marched by different people house. We had a band, you know, and we had the ROTC, we had the Jonesboro Police, and the municipal stuff people downtown. That made it work.
Okay.
And he was the very first speaker. And so people just kind of fell in line. And so from there, it continued to grow and to grow. And so I said, then I kept praying about it. And I like for things to be really professional and really good and really clean and upscale, you know. And so we all work together. And so now it is a functioning organization that our city is proud of, and I'm thankful for.
It is amazing. It has become an historical event for Jonesboro, Arkansas.
For Northeast Arkansas.
Well, yes,
Northeast you got people
Arkansas.
come from all over, you know. We come from one band the first year to no band the second year to now we got 2 bands that comes every year, and we got to hold them back because there's so many. An ROT program from all over this Northeast Arkansas, you know. They're calling me now, and I thank God for that.
On top of the bands, the performers, you've had incorporated great speakers.
Yeah, we have.
And I have been very fortunate to attend the majority of them.
Okay.
And I am just truly in awe of what you have brought to the city. Yes.
And we got to thank Arkansas State University. We blended together, you know.
Yes.
And we brought it together. So I am just thankful to the city of Jonesboro and to Arkansas State University, you know, and that was a match that needed to be. Mm-hmm. But you know something? We have simply scraped just the surface of what we're going to bring to this city. The MLK singers, the dancers, and all these other things, you know, and the steppers from the high school, from the different region over a party here. We've only scraped the surface. Next year, we're going to blow you out the water. The ultimate goal, though, is to bring in a professional movie star, a real live movie star.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be satisfied. Even though I have stepped down from the chairmanship, I'm still working. So I'm going in a different direction now, and I'm gonna come back and bring something in that we really need. I have friends who are real live movie stars.
Okay.
And so I'm working on them now. B.B. King would have come, but they don't book him far ahead because of his age. And he was making a movie when I talked to his people, but they promised me that they're gonna do something great for us.
And not to make light on the other things you've done in the community, I do want the people to know that you have made some major accomplishments and influenced many people here in the city of Jonesboro. And I really want to thank you for that, for being, I don't know, someone that I can look up to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you for that.
As if we haven't covered enough, we talked about the MLK.
Okay.
You talked about your role and everything that's coming in the future. We just don't know what God has in store. Right. You received so many proclamations, awards, and recognitions. You know, you've been covered on all the major media outlets, the magazines here in Northeast Arkansas. And now with the power of social media, with VMAG TV, everyone around the world is going to be able to see. We get more phone calls.
I'm going to change my number.
So you can't retire in 4 years.
Not yet.
Can you please turn to the camera and give our viewers some food for thought from Dr. A.R. Scales?
Close to God, stay in prayer, and keep the faith. Never ever give up on your dreams, and never cave in to pettiness, because God is in charge. Blessings to you.